Hello, welcome back. Morning once again. Dr. Ramesh, shall we start now?
Yeah, please.
Hi, morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, yeah.
Dear participants, as we all know, Dr. Ramesh now, this is welcome to the second session of today. Dr. Ramesh, we were talking about the geopolitics and the role of third pole in the wildlife conservation in Central and Southern Asia in the first half. And it's really great to have you in the second half and talking about the integrating technology in the wildlife research and conservation. Dear participants, as we all know, we enriched and updated our knowledge on the landscape conservation planning and management with the Greater Panna landscape yesterday. And here we have Dr. Ramesh once again. So I will not take much time because we all know him. We have already formally introduced him. So without wasting any time, I would now welcome and request Dr. Ramesh to please share his screen and start his lecture on integrating technology in the wildlife research and conservation.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Aishwarya, and good morning, everyone. Today, let me just have my presentation. Hope it's visible.
Yeah, great, perfect.
Okay. So following on more of a conceptual governance issue, now about the technology, which is basically the tools for the management. Actually, that's what is very important for us to understand. So I just put all the technology that we are actually doing in the forest management or wildlife management under the larger category of conservation technologies. So I think in my presentation, I'll be touching upon some of the important cutting edge technology that are being used now or under development. So it's one of the modern kind of tools that we've been using in wildlife management. So therefore, this particular discussion, I'm trying to see how we can integrate technology as a kind of regular management research or management tool. We all know that there are many technologies, but starting from the very basics to more sophisticated technologies. But what is important is when the technology has to be successful, there is a need for institutionalizing the technology. So even our day-to-day life, whatever we see, any technology, if you think it is successful, you would invariably relate that to have been institutionalized as a part of life. So be it our television or telephone, smartphone now, laptops, whatever. I mean, in fact, very often it is said, the day you actually forget using that particular technology, I mean, the awe of the technology is not there, then that means it has become a part of life. When technology becomes part of life, then its use is ingrained and it's more effective. So in wildlife sector or forest sector, we have some of this important technology that the remote sense GIS, which also includes the knowledge management system. And we have drone or UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, the telemetry technology, we have camera trap technology. There are many wireless sensor networks. Then we also call them electronic surveillance or EI tool. So these are some of the technologies. But if the technology have to become very effective, these 2 points have to be remembered. One is the technology needs to be integrated and institutionalized at local level or regional level, national level, or sometimes it can transcend boundaries across country where you're looking at collaborators between countries and no institutions. Unless we integrate or institutionalize the technology, how much ever effort we're making, investment making, it doesn't yield complete solutions. So therefore, please remember, whenever we use the technology, maybe sometimes we say, okay, I introduce a technology, it is very good technology, but somebody said, okay, maybe I'm the pioneer, it's all fine. But if the technology does not work beyond your control, or after you leave the place, or after the project is over, then there is no good. It's more of an ego issue. Okay. As long as I was there, it was doing what? Fine. It was there. So after you left, it's gone. So what does it mean? So maybe you can feel very happy about ourselves. Okay, fine. I am great scientist or technocrat. I have done this. But after I have left, it's not there. That means I am so important. Okay, you may be very important, but the fact that the technology is not working, so whatever the investment or the name that people got, it's very useless. Therefore, that is the reason that why technocrats are successful, because the technology is made to use in such percolates to society, so it's been used. The second one, if you really use the technology, if you collect information, I think we need to operationalize knowledge management. We often very much we talk about knowledge and knowledge management, knowledge is power and all that. But we can ask ourselves, how much of the knowledge that we contribute that can be managed? How much of the knowledge that we like other people use? So many of the time we actually hold the data. But you think of it 10 years down the line, or maybe you can compare it with some of the people who are retired and see what actually they've done with the data. Hardly they must have published some papers. Maybe 60% of the papers from the data would have not been even published. So it's basically, I would call it knowledge waste, e-waste. Like e-waste, we call it, it's more like a knowledge waste. We have a knowledge waste kind of situation, many of us as a professional contribute. So in order to offset that, what we need is to operationalize knowledge management and science policy interface facilities. So that needs to involve information storage, synthesize, visualization, and the current and futuristic form, and sharing and dissemination. I think it's a very important, maybe it is easier said than done. So many of us live in a society where a lot of insecurity exists, but unless we do this, it doesn't really contribute a big way. I mean, that will probably be realized after you grow older a little bit, and then when the time of retirement comes, so you only have your CV to boast of, nothing else. So I take you through some of the technology from the conceptual to operational. So one of the very important technology that I think it's on the applied value is on the landscape ecology and its related technique. Landscape ecology is a science of pattern and processes. Basically saying what you see now, which is a pattern of anything, it could be spatial, it could be temporal pattern, is an outcome of a certain process. Suppose if I see a heterogeneous ecosystem, or there is a system with a riverine ecosystem, the kind of pattern that I have now is a contribution of the process that is being done with the biotic apactive factor. Okay, but at the same time, the process is also influenced by the pattern. So the intertwinking of this pattern process is where the landscape ecology tells you. It says basically spatially explicit pattern and processes. So it's a very important science, because for any of us into management decision making, spatial thinking is required. When we say spatial thinking, it is a matter of how we actually visualize any surface or any thematic context or any phenomena, and then try to understand the pattern and then decode the process, and therefore explain what may be happening to this land system. So for that, there are several techniques, many of which actually are there in textbooks, but some of those things which are related to conservation, I'll be just touching upon. When we look at large landscapes, yesterday we talked about landscapes, I talked about connectivity. What I did not elaborate is this. When we talk about a system, there are forest areas, there are source areas, animals are migrating, whether it's the birds or mammals. So connectivity, when we say, okay, one system is connected to others, it is not an object. Connectivity is not an object, it is a function. If an animal is going from one place to other, they can use either structural connectivity or can use an area where there is no structural connectivity, but they negotiate through even alien environment. So as long as they're able to make the connection, the connectivity does exist. So that as a scientist, as a professional, we are supposed to recognize this functional aspect of connectivity rather than just putting so much weightage on structural aspect of the connectivity. So please remember that connectivity is not just an object, or it's not just structure, it is a function. Now, the structural possibility exists with a different gradient. So there is a tool called, connectivity tool. There are many connectivity tools that evolved across the globe. So one of the common method that is still being used is known as the least cost path analysis, short form LCP method. So now the LCP method is also combined with the circuit theory or graph theory. So based on which we are able to compute a resistance. If an object or any live object is dropped anywhere, technically it can move 360-degree direction. So let's say, imagine yourself, you're dropped in an island. Okay. So you make a movement across 360-degree, but then you encounter a ocean. So the ocean here becomes a resistant. Whereas if there is any area, maybe in one of the 360-degree, then there is a landform, then you have a connectivity. So similarly, in a land feature, there is a forest area which is very conducive. When it goes to human habitation, it is not conducive. Their resistance is provided by the human habitation. Maybe sometimes resistance is provided by the high traffic road. So computing the resistance layer, one can decide where is the path which gives me the least cost to move. So LCP essentially identifies the path which has the least resistance. Okay. Then based on this current, so how frequent this movement is possible is decided again by the source areas on either side. There can be least cost, but you need to have a source areas on either side to have the movement to be much higher. So therefore, in addition to identifying the path, we also look at the flow parameter. So based on the flow parameter, we identify, okay, this is a important corridor. This is that is how we identify which forest patch is more important, which corridor is more important. So these two things actually allows scientists or managers identify the priority. So these are some of the tools. There are many other connectivity modeling tools available. This is an example. I mean, the one that I showed is an example from the same greater landscape yesterday discussed about. This is an example coming from the Western Ghats. So 3 states, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka put together. So we could actually identify where the forest is, where the movement can take place. So what you see this brown is an area where the cost is low, so animal can actually move around. Okay. So that is how connectivity can be just managed. The other aspect, you may have structural connectivity, you may have functional connectivity. One of the other important aspect to keep in mind is that ability of an individual organism to disperse. So there are migratory birds, they migrate long distance from Eurasia to India. There are ones migrate from Himalayas. There are ones which are lower migration, local migration. Similarly, for animals like tiger or any other large carnivore, male can travel longer distance as compared to females. So the ability of an individual also decides the connectivity. If you are interested in large scale conservation, we also need to see what we want. In fact, in the case of elephant, it is said, even if the elephant crosses once in 5 years, the genetic diversity can be maintained. So therefore, you really don't need a connectivity, just that once in 5 years, this animal need to go to the other population mix up. So some scientists argue that we don't need a connectivity. Sometimes if the connectivity doesn't exist, please do not force. Instead, think of translocation. Maybe you translocate this male for some time. That's it. Then you do this kind of an aerial connectivity through functional aspect. So these are some of this thought process which are aligned to our science and conservation. So to take this message forward, once you have them, then get into a strategy called spatial prioritization. Based on your connectivity, based on your forest patch, you actually identify which area is more important that we talked about yesterday. Yeah. And what is important here is identifying different level of priorities also. What is my priority 1? What is my priority 2? What is my priority 3? What is my priority 4? What is my priority 5? These comes based on different conservation value. So priority 1 is an area which has got high tiger movement plus high biodiversity. So that's an area where we say no-go areas, non-inviolate areas, where we want to secure it at any cost. So priority 2 areas is a more of tiger areas, maybe less biodiversity, things like that. So all these options are already existing. Anybody has any question on this landscape concept?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So maybe if you guys have a question, please reserve it. Then we can always come back also. Now, the second important the technology that we deal with is the camera trap technology. Camera trap. We all know the camera. So this camera traps is an automated camera traps. Once you put out in the forest, it triggers picture based on certain sensors. There are motion sensors, which is basically any movement is detected, and that movement triggers based on through the sensor, it triggers the camera. Similarly, we have thermal sensors. If a thermal sensor is placed, it will detect any object which is kind of a, let's say, outside the environment, body weight. So human or any mammal which has got a body temperature which is above the surrounding, it detects the trigger. So like that, we have sometimes we have infrared sensors, and there are active sensors, there are passive sensors. So a lot of options are available. So automated camera traps have transformed the way we have looked at the finds and management in the past. Earlier, many of these carnivores, very secret animal, were not even seen. Ever since the camera traps came into being, and we started not only trying to understand the number of animals found in the world, and we are also getting to know many behavioral aspects about different animals. I think when it comes to even snow leopard, earlier snow leopard supposed to be the rarest animal to be seen. I think it's more from a secretive nature rather than the number. So with the camera trap, we've been discovering or identifying different individuals all across the Himalayas, even going all the way up to 1500 meters. The lowest records have been seen through camera trap. So camera trap now it's become a part of the regular forest management. That is why now the population estimation of tiger, leopard, many other animals have come more robust. So this has become one of the important tool being integrated in research and management across country, especially in the tiger reserves. We have about more than 50 tiger reserves. This is a mandatory for the tiger reserves to get a camera trap deployed every year, get population estimation of the target species. There are tiger reserves which are little advanced in the planning process, particularly places like Panna where we have been guiding certain process. We have system called continuous camera trap monitoring system, CCMS, which means that we have the certain protocol. Maybe in the winter month, we put the camera trap on opposite side, try to get the flanks of the sides of the picture of the both side animal, get the population estimation to be more robust. But during non-estimation period, one-sided camera trap is deployed, the other one is removed and then put out everywhere in the forest. So every week we get information about the tiger movement. So once we get the tiger movement, the forest department can actually have a control of the entire population, which is otherwise impossible because you have to see this animal. Seeing a tiger is not that easy. So you actually start seeing this tiger through camera trap. Every week or fortnight, you collate the information, understand where the animals are moving. So this is a more of a population estimation or monitoring or even deterrence tool. So with the continuous camera trap monitoring system in place, poaching instances come down, fire instances come down, so you can react. Or on second issue is that once you have the camera trap, you could also take your law enforcement more strongly. Okay, so because the evidence becomes much more stronger through camera traps. Use camera traps for many purposes, and then one that you see like population estimation, because the stripe pattern for individual tiger or leopard is unique, on which market capture method and population estimation is done. The same camera trap is also now used. These pictures have been collated and stored in a centralized depository. If any place, if a tiger is poached or skin is confiscated, we can easily find out from where this tiger came from. So it's also easy to identify the source of the poaching incidences. Earlier, it was not possible. Based on camera trap continuous monitoring system, or during the period that I mentioned about, one can use those location detail and come up with the home range of animal. Similarly, camera trap also being used to get relative abundance estimation of prey species, in addition to getting the distribution pattern of different species, even though we may not be able to have individual identification, but we know the location identification. We know where is the spread of this particular species, what is the relative abundance of species based on capture rates. Yeah. Now we have traps, which is in the pipeline. And this is kind of, I would say, it's you are one of the very few people in the country who are getting to know this. Just being developed and by one of our collaborators in US. It's an artificial intelligence camera traps. It's known as a trail guard. It actually, the interesting point is, it really has a classification system. So within the camera itself, it can classify whether it's a human, whether it's a tiger, whether it's an elephant, whether it's a leopard. It can send information. It's more meant for poaching and human conflict, but human wildlife conflict, and also for population estimation. So you can say, put the camera trap anywhere and introduce a detector quickly. Artificial intelligence detects human image, and then it's to your computer through cell tower or local network. It's known as LoRa, or even satellite modem. Even it can be connected through satellite. Okay, so it's basically a classification tool. That is why the artificial intelligence is there. Because once the alert is done, then the response unit can be. It's been done in 7 African parks, actually, that's been deployed. But India, we have already done a test case in Kana Bench Corridor and also the Wildlife Institute of India. So we will soon be having protection in India, and it's going to be a big game changer in the country. You can see this camera trap is very small in size. Okay, it's this SD card is there, so you can have data both in SD card as well as there. So now they've developed for anti-poaching, human wildlife conflict, sometimes protecting indigenous islands from logging, and bycatch of marine fishes, invasive species, monitoring wildlife, illegal logging. It is because some of the features of this particular artificial intelligence camera trap include, it's a very small in size, miniature camera trap. Okay, it has not, as I said, artificial intelligence, which detect connectivity through 2G, 3G, 4G, or local telemetry, an extender, LTE. Okay. Then we have long battery life. It can last for, almost months and years. So fast wake-up time, it's immediately clicks and senses. The other thing is that they have been collaborating with some of the top players in the camera technology, the chip, the Intel, the CVDA, Mersat, all of them. These are all one of the top people. So therefore, the technology is likely to be more robust. Size, you can see, you can hold it in your hand. It's that small. It can be easily hidden in the forest. So basically, it is a new way of looking at the forest now. It's 40 times smaller than the conventional camera trap that we have, 6 to 8 times faster than other camera traps, several years of extended battery life, which is not available in other ones, can run multiple artificial intelligence modes simultaneously. Just comparison, you can see this existing camera trap, which is Reconics Hyperfire. It's a one that we have. As compared to that, you can actually see the other the trail guard camera trap that we're talking about. Yeah. So these are some of the big advantages, and very importantly, once we have them in the field, so it can be connected through the existing mobile network. If not, you can boost it through local network, and then that connects to other one. It can do multi-hop. Maybe you have a GSM network or LoRa network. All of them. These options are available. So currently, these camera traps have been developed for lion, elephant, leopard, snow leopard, and I think tiger has been worked on. Okay, so we've been working at rhino and other species, but then for our condition, we are mostly going to be using it for tiger. Multiple scenarios it can work, and depending on the field situation. I'm not going to go to the details of it because these situations are better understood when you start using in the field, and field managers all actually be using it. So because of differences in connectivity option, not having connectivity, all this can be handled through support system. And sometimes even one camera trap fails, so the communication can be boosted through other transmitters. So things have evolved. So I think that's about camera trap. Now the satellite remote sensing, it's another important one. You all know this. Many of you may be using it already. But what is very striking is that the scale and the resolution with which we are able to do now than before. So it's a revolutionized the science that can be processed. These days, you get a paper which a large scale regional scale, global scale, partly because of the technology that is available to remote sensing. Yeah. Sorry, this is some mess up. So anyway, I'll be talking that into a little details with the knowledge management system. But after the camera trap, then let's move into the telemetry. Telemetry is understanding any object from the distance. So in fact, it is the best way of knowing the way of light, because the camera trap, sorry, and the animal has a transmitter. It can transmit information on regular basis. So we can collect information. There are multiple sensors available: temperature, motion, activity, whatnot, proximity sensors, drop-off sensors, all sorts of things are available. So we have GPS collars with the GSM satellite uplink. This is one of the projects in Uttarakhand where problem animals, dispersed animals at the early stage of reintroduction have been studied. The leopard was found in Roorkee area. You can see this concentration of the points. It was captured and got translocated here somewhere in Haridwar Forest Division. But after some efforts, this leopard crossed over the Ganges and then went back to the Roorkee area. So what it was possible earlier, people used to just kind of capture the animal, relocate somewhere, thinking that the animal is gone. But if the animal is adult and established territory, it is going to come back again. So these kind of knowledge was available after putting this satellite based telemetry unit. Similarly, for other leopard which is caught in the mountain with the conflict and brought it down, it again, after some efforts, went back to the same area, started establishing. These were some of the knowledge. And similar with elephant, we had one conflict elephant of 15, 20 years, which used to operate in a the establishment in Haridwar. It actually killed people, 2 people, and then it was supposed to be captured. It was captured and brought to this other site called Mitawali in Chilla range of the Rajaji Tiger Reserve. So it was released there after radio collar. But then after spending so much time, you can see this from the period of January to May 2018, this animal was moving around here only. So maybe when it found, because January the water will be very cold, okay, maybe up to, it might be the animal waited. When the month of May, when the water was also not very cold and then the flow is also not so much, it crossed and then went to the other side. So even though it could stay for some months, so I think January to May, it's almost 5 months, it stayed there, but then it went over again, it made kill of people. So then it has to be recaptured. And because of that, this animal is now being under the captivity. So these things have started evolving through this technological thing. In Panna, again, we had tigers populations recovered. There are about 37 tigers that has been dispersed out of the Panna Tiger Reserve. So we've been able to monitor them and where they're actually going around through this satellite telemetry. We could kind of see where all they've done, where they've dispersed. So even though the sample size is not that great, although we have the ongoing project where we'll be tracking more animals, but we were able to understand where it went. So one important thing that was also possible is that you could actually have this technology which has got drop-off function, which means that even after the collar is placed, we could have a communication with the caller. We could communicate to them. So, okay, you change this location detail. And sometimes we decide, okay, we don't want the telemetry anymore. So we don't want the collar on the animal. So one of the team member actually used from the field and removed the collar. I mean, they could actually remove the collar and then drop off function. I think, I don't know. You can actually see this. This is a collar on this animal. So through the technology that we had, we could use the communication from our handheld antenna and trigger this. So then the collar comes off automatically. So it basically advances our use of technology in wild animals. You can just see that it just suddenly breaks. The animal seems to be giving a pose. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
So you could see that is being automatically, dropped off, and you can kind of See, this is some of this very, very important advancement in the field science, because many of the time what happens, you put the radio collar on the animal, after the collar fails, the battery dies, the animal still carries this collar with them. So now field manager used to, I'd say, question or, hey, what do you do with this? Now with this kind of technology, people feel more comfortable and do this. Similar is the case with vultures. I think Panna is another place where we have done satellite tracking of vulture. There are about 25 vultures, probably the largest, one of the largest in the country that we have done recently, with 25 vultures being tagged, satellite GPS or GSM tags, which also include our Himalayan griffon. Yeah. So Eurasian griffon, we have about 8 of the Himalayan griffon, 3 of the Eurasian griffon, and rest 2 of the king vulture, and remaining all long-billed vultures. So we've been able to satellite these animals. There's got EOPS, a digital telemetry system used in this particular project, which is transmitting to different situations. We are able to get it. So it's based on the GPRS, very high resolution. Every 5 minutes, we are able to get locations. And we have a team in the field that followed the proper capture process, and all the measurements done, and they were released. You can see this. The tag weights ranging from 90 gram to 25 grams. So we have small ones. As I mentioned, there are about 25 birds that have been tagged. You can see now the picture with the Eurasian griffon with the tag is a very tiny one. And so these are the number of things. So once we have released them, you could see this. This is again eye-opener for us. The vultures are using most of the protected area as a refugee, but they're going all around. Probably they're also coming all the way to Banda and going east. So they're ranging all across. Very interestingly, they've been closely following some of the small forest areas, even for perches and things like that. They're going to human habitation in an area where the gaushalas and things like that. So we could see that this is one of red-headed vultures, another red-headed vultures going all the way this side, Ranipur, and going this side to, I think, Datia, this region towards Rajasthan and south. So they've been traveling all over. And other long-billed vulture, which is basically located, but then using extension. They like that. This is the initial result. We have been able to get. I mean, of course, now we will be waiting for this griffons to travel back to the Himalayas. I mean, they would have probably start now this month. It's going to be very interesting to see where actually come from. It's going to be new knowledge in the country. So this is the size of the vulture that you can actually see how big or how small it is. So you can see our team as well as the field director Panna. So the released bird is actually going very interestingly. I think I probably had this release picture marks on there. Yeah. Now, into the other most sophisticated technology which is in the play now, the Prime Minister is pushing, all the government is pushing, the Ministry of Civil Aviation pushing, is the UAV technology, this unmanned aerial vehicle or unmanned aerial system, popularly known as drone. But we call that as the eBird project. In fact, we have a project known as eBird electronic bird. So this project is done. So this is a project that is being executed as part of the National Tiger Conservation Authority and Wildlife of India. To your knowledge, the drones are classified into 3 types. One is, we call them copters. It can be quadcopter, multicopter. Other type is fixed wing or plane model. A third one is hybrid or VTOL model. VTOL is basically vertical takeoff landing. It's more like a copter, but then it also has both plane as well as copter combination. So there are multiple types of copter. There are similarly multiple types of fixed wings or plane. They have different wings, and this similarly hybrid also multiple. So as you know, UAV offers innovative option for wildlife management. I think for surveillance, cost-effective high-resolution mapping, dealing with human-wildlife conflict. Now in agriculture areas, other areas, people have been using UAV. I think it's again another game changer for countries' development perspective, because you can see these are some of the models that are already available in the market, which are being used by people. Yeah. So you could get a resolution map of any area. So you can go to less than 5 centimeter resolution. So get real-time daily land cover map, monitor areas on a high frequency, phenological monitoring. I think it's going to be useful in multiple purposes that one cannot think of even. Secondly, also to target survey. So you have a priori fixed GPS coordinates. Since these drones do have autopilot, it's more like any commercial flight that we have. So you can have autopilot and ask the drone to go in those GPS points. So these green points could be the prefixed point. You can ask the drone to go in those prefix points. It can go and collect data. So it's useful for monitoring and surveillance in terms of any intrusion, or sometimes also drop medicines or supplies. So it happens in many places. So depending on the payloads, people generally call what is a payload of drone? That is nothing but how much weight it can carry. Drone payload means how much weight it can carry. So what are the general payloads can be? It can be cameras it can carry, or some sensor it can carry, or sometimes it can carry a box. So depending on what size is, it can be cinematic camera, RGB camera, FLIR camera, no multispectral camera, it can be anything. Similarly, sensors, LiDAR or ISR sensor, there are many sensors. Similarly, carry box, medical carrier, general carrier, it's all possible. This is one of the drones that we have in the market, known as hybrid drone. Survey of India has actually purchased. If anyone of his connect Survey of India would know that the Trinity drone, hundreds of them have been bought by Survey of India, is mapping all across the country with high resolution village boundaries and things like that. So I think the general load payload I said, because drones are also been categorized now into these 5 types: nano type, micro type, small, medium, large. I'll tell you what exactly these types are later. But in this slide, you just need to note that what each of the type can actually contribute. So large type can have everything, medium also, but small and micro, nano have very different purposes. Drone application, I think the growth in India has been tremendous. 2013, probably the first time we actually had the formal launch of the drone, but then within 7-8 years, it's picked up. So we can see drone being used in tourism, agriculture, urban development, traffic, forest and wildlife management, healthcare, security, mining, disaster management, oil and gas, telecom, insurance. You name it, it's there. Okay. So we started looking at in wildlife also very recently, but agriculture also has picked up more now. So, but then depending on those payload, as I said earlier on, that there could be many functions, starting with mapping to going all the way to industrial function. Use of drone in India, if you look at the history, you very often, many of us got to know in 2019 when the Delhi police used the drone. That's when it was very popular. They were actually using it to control the anti-CA protest. And then we also used for the locust attack, the huge locust invasion 2020. That also was very famously known for use of drone for handling this. And also for COVID. So I think transporting drugs and vaccines, it was done. And now, as I said earlier on, Survey of India is doing this rural land, India's rural land measuring. That's one of the mission actually from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, Shillong, that has been done under the PMO, Prime Minister Office. So I think 6 states have an MOU with the Survey of India for drone survey of rural areas, implemented scheme. And I mean, Pradhan Mantri Yojana also uses the drone. And June, National Highway 2021 National Highway started using it. But for the first time in India, it was in 2013. Kaziranga Tiger Reserve was the one to use the drone formally. You can see the forest minister. We had a group called Conservation Drone and Wildlife Institute National Tiger Conservation Authority, WLF. Everybody joined hands together, and this was launched 2013. Then followed up with Panna Tiger Reserve, where we implemented a project under the NTCA platform. So then I think you can see the growth of drone application in India is actually catapulted from this particular situation, because till then there was no drone policy. You can actually see the policy development happened here. But the kind of information that we're able to get now, you can see this Wildlife Institute campus, high resolution. We can get LiDAR, we can get fine resolution topographic mapping. We can get into village grassland mapping. Rivers, we could get high resolution rivers and get the morphology. We can classify them, get the bank vegetation or river morphology measured. Not only that, you can actually see this crocodile. We can actually count crocodile and also measure the distance. That was never possible. You can never, periodically capture the crocodile and measure the distance and get the morphometry done. So these are something that is possible from these drone. So we could actually in Panna Ken River, we could monitor crocodile through this high resolution drone. And you see all these points, we could actually see where all these crocodiles are. So we can even count them and get measurements done. So basically, this is kind of, and otherwise it is never possible to just to get a population estimation of this kind of distribution of crocodiles all across the very steep inaccessible river. Yeah. So you can actually get these things done, and you can see this automosaic map of this panna we could actually get through this technology. And after getting this data, you can actually know what is an height, where we can actually have bank stabilization input or bank vegetation growth. All this are possible now. Otherwise, even with high resolution satellite data, I don't know, it might take much longer, but whereas this one provides a much easier option. Yeah, we could get this, all those detailed digital elevation model, get this vertical profile, and measure the distance, depth. All of them are now possible. Yeah. And similarly, we are also able to use this for EAA processes. In fact, we've done this one of the projects in Punjab, where the road expansion was there. We were able to do aerial survey and measure and find out what are the animals are being used. And also, we have done it for animal counts in many places: Kaziranga, Dudhwa, Panna, and Satyamangalam. So here goes this the drone development. You can starting with the generation 1 basic remote control toy drone. We have been seeing kids are playing, to advanced army level artificial intelligence drone. 7th generation is done now, and the drone policy is something that we all must utilize. It's one of the robust, I would say, one of the best policy ever in the world. I used to wonder earlier that when Europe and other countries were using drone, but India was very prohibitive. But with this drone policy 2021, I think it's changed the entire thing. So now you can see this, as I said earlier, 2013, no policy, we have it on record. But after we started playing the drone in Kaziranga Panna, and a lot of interest developed both within and outside country. So you had this drone policy developed 2014. It went on revision, first edition, revision. Then we had the policy in 2020, but then it had very strict regulations. But then based on the input from all of us, it's been revised and it has been updated now. So this is one of the very important drone policy, I would say. And you can see this entire chronology of the event, starting with the DGCA restricting drone usages and going all the way up to providing the policy. It's coming back to this weight classes. The Directorate of Civil Aviation has classified the drone into these categories: nano, micro, small, medium, large, based on the weight classes. And depending on the weight classes and the payload, the application also varies, because application nano will be hobby and photography, and the micro can go a little bit better photography, but then other categories can go for mapping and high resolution. There are some drones which are already available in the market which belong to these categories. But importantly, this drone policy, certain permissions have been regulated, particularly for research and development and government. So many of those things which are required has been eased out. Now for any commercial pilot, they need to have these permission for different category. Nano does not require anything. Micro, small, micro has some, but then small has all, medium has all of them. But then these zonations also been done. Airport, this is a restricted zone, then the yellow zone with the permission, then green zone, no permission required. So these kind of options are available. And as I said, research and development for other education institutions, these restrictions have been eased out, except for the zonations. That is important. Red zone, anybody flying, they need to get a permission, or sometimes you can't fly at all. But exemptions are already available. And they also come up with insurance. Now third-party insurance have been incorporated in the drone policy, where any incidents that is happening out of the drone, you can invoke this Motor Vehicle Act and then have insurance done. It can be compensated. So the third-party liability, comprehensive drone, the policy has already been prescribed in this policy. So this particular slide is very interesting to note, because earlier everybody used to think of drone being used in offensive purpose, army. But I think it's used to be a war drone until they helped me discover my humanity. I think that's a very important statement. The technology is as good as or as bad as we understand, or as good as bad as our intentions are. Okay. So it can be used well, it can be misused depending on who you are. And similarly, the effectiveness also belongs to you. It is nothing to technology. Technology is an instrument, it's done by the engineers, but then use of technology will decide the future of it. Finally, the knowledge management, because any knowledge which is not managed, as I said, it's a knowledge waste. Like I call it a K waste, like e-waste. So the K waste situation should not be there. We needed to really think through and use the knowledge for a proper decision support system. So this is one of the very important aspects that many of us have to keep in mind. So Knowledge management is nothing but putting information on spatially explicit form. We have a lot of secondary data these days, many databases already available. You just simply needed to get them, not like earlier where you need to process all the data. Many of them are available. All these data, please put them in a same extent or resolution or not resolution, the projection parameters, so you can keep adding them. There are many supporting software available through ArcGIS or open source. Many of them are available, web-based, web-enabled, not web-enabled, all sorts of things. So once you have them, so then you can keep documenting. For example, this photo identification database management that's being done by National Tiger Conservation Authority and Wildlife Ministry of India, it allows all the tigers or leopards that are being stored, photographed and cataloged, managed. So there is a software called Extract Compare, which can automatically identify which is a unique individual and they are being processed and stored. So it basically allows. The second ArcGIS enterprise system, it's very expensive, but once you buy it with a large scale institution like with the CSR or state government, so maybe you invest about 40-50 lakhs initially, maybe every 5 years, it probably needs to be renewed, but then it can allow for 40-50 licenses and information can be web enabled. It can be uploaded anywhere in the world and you can use it. So I think it's also changed the way we are looking at the database management. And this knowledge management also allows us to use information for predictions. Like this is an example where we can visualize the future flood situation. We can visualize futuristic form of impacts, whether it's EAA or any other impacts or climate change vulnerability. People have started using it all across. So that is also then based on which we can decide of our response mechanism. And like yesterday I said about collaborative learning, advanced planning, it's a key thing in any knowledge management, because once we have the knowledge, we just discuss with people and then decide on how things can be developed. So I think the knowledge management allows us to have the collaborative learning and advanced planning. So I think many countries, advanced countries, have actually worked on this principle and incorporated in the district plan or development plans. They've been successful. And finally, I would say a strong public participation in environment governance could increase, for which you need visualization. We need this kind of prediction. You need to engage them, saying that, okay, this is your past, this is your present, this is your future. So for which we need a 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional perspective views. So only then we can engage the stakeholders. Once you visualize the futuristic impact, it's much easier to engage communities. So this is how the whole process of technology evolves into knowledge management and finally getting into engaging the stakeholder in a very effective manner. Therefore, collectively, conservation efforts can be actually affected very nicely. So these are some of the things that I really wanted to share. I'm finishing earlier so that we can have a more discussion possible. So thank you so much for your attention. I'll be happy to take any question now.
Thank you so much. That was really impressive, informative, and I would say, an incredible presentation. And the techniques which you have shared was really, updating all of our knowledge, not generally in wildlife, but in forestry sector, right from the drone and artificial intelligence, which would be really helpful in so many means in, right from patrolling or, wildlife conservation and forestry sector in general. So we are now open for Q&A. Please ask your questions.
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Ashok, please.
Sir, I have one question. There is any case study reported where camera traps and artificial camera traps help in mitigating human-wildlife conflict? Any study reported earlier or in the present?
This particular camera trap artificial intelligence that I said, it's essentially meant for human-wildlife conflict management only. So later on, we are going to adopt. In fact, it's been done in Africa. So this particular camera trap. So because since it is very tiny, it can detect the human visiting the kill. So essentially to alarm if anybody is poisoning the kill or if the tiger is going there. So it is being done. So in fact, we did this trial work in Kanapinch corridor, but it was more of a experiment. But then this particular camera trap already being deployed in Africa. But one of the major objective of this particular project, we are currently involved in Kanapinch corridor, is to actually deal with the human-wildlife conflict.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
What is the cost of artificial intelligence camera, and are they available in the open market?
No, it's basically, as I said, it's on the collaborative mode. It's being developed now. So currently it is pitched around $400, $500, which is about, I think, 35,000 rupees, which is comparable to any of the Reconics camera trap. But then we are in discussion. It's going to be actually manufactured in India very soon. They already worked out a firm in Gurgaon. I think this year onwards, it might be available within India. So we are working out a mechanism for distribution. So I will be involved, and there's a National Tiger Conservation Authority and the Global Tiger Forum. And also this Clemson University in US, we have been collaboratively working. But then, yes, there are actually individuals who are looking at it. So we are also, in fact, thinking that no Make in India concept will be there. So this manufacturing will actually happen in India. We also said that since this also involves the server, so the intelligence, the information also will be within India. So we want to make sure that everything is within India. So I think that the company which is producing it, they're amenable to this idea. So very soon this year, I think we will have them in the market, open market.
Okay. And sir, when Chitrakoot will get the tiger reserve?
Sorry?
When Chitrakoot will get the tiger reserve?
Chitrakoot will get tiger reserve, I'm not sure, but I think we are pushing for Ranipur and tiger reserve. That I think that will definitely become tiger reserve. That I can guarantee you.
Okay.
And then I think Chitrakoot, I think separately, I think UP is also planning, I was told. I don't know whether because Chitrakoot, that particular division is slightly far or it's close by, slightly far. I think there will be one more tiger reserve, which will be Chitrakoot Tiger Reserve, which is probably from Bihar side, I think, if I'm not wrong. But UP, I think maybe UP is also planning. But then Ranipur is one of our bargain for this, the Kenbetwa River Link project under the landscape plan. We have recommended Ranipur Wildlife Sanctuary to be Tiger Reserve, which is again recommendation by NTCA. But then in our concept, we have proposed interstate Tiger Reserve. Ranipur will probably be core, and this Satna and Riva, some of the ranges of these two divisions will become buffer. So this might become one of the first interstate Tiger Reserve in the country.
Great, sir. Great. Thank you.
Any more questions? Great. So if there are no questions, yeah, you want to say something?
No, I was just saying that maybe it was probably a little heavy, so maybe we can discuss later. Whenever anybody has anything, any specific request, feel free to contact me for both the things. So we'll be available on email, so no problem.
Yeah. So, and particularly coming to the techniques and technologies, there are more and more questions, and when we are actually using them, rather reading and studying them theoretically. Anyway, so Dr. Ramesh, at the outset, I express our gratitude to the Banda University of Agricultural Technology for sharing two wonderful lectures and sharing your knowledge with us. It has been really great 2 sessions which you have conducted, and sharing your incredible knowledge and experiences with all of us. So with these words, thank you so much. And we really look forward to your similar kind of cooperation and guidance for our upcoming, academic and professional programs. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So, dear participant, that was end of today's session, and hope you have thoroughly, learned and upgraded and enhanced your skills. So for tomorrow, it is going to be once again in the same theme, forestry and biodiversity conservation. And the first lecture will be delivered by Dr. Avinash Jain. He is a scientist at TFRI. And he will be talking about economic valuation of forest for their tangible and intangible benefits. So a very important lecture. We really look forward to it. It would be followed by Dr. Ajay Kumar. He is a scientist at RFRI, Assam, and he will be talking about valuation of ecosystem services with a special reference to the Manas National Park. So great. Yes, I can see one more session in the afternoon because it was falling in the another during the holy holidays. So we have shifted it here and it is on the illegal wildlife trade. So a very important aspect of the forestry as well as wildlife conservation by Dr. Shekhar Kumar Neeraj. He's a senior IFS and Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, PCCF, in the from the cadre of Tamil Nadu. So he's a serving PCCF at Tamil Nadu, and he will be talking about the illegal wildlife trade and overview. So we have scheduled 3 very important lectures for tomorrow. So please make sure that you will not miss any of them because it is not from the attendance perspective side, but also from the maintaining and upgrading your knowledge as well. So with these words, thank you very much. And we look forward to your similar and more interactive participation tomorrow. Take care. Have a great day ahead.
Hello, Dr. Aishwarya. I want to ask.
Yeah, Dr. Ashok, please.
You are planning, are you planning for any lecture regarding to forest tree building or tree propagation related to tree propagation?
Come again, sorry, I can't hear you properly.
Any lecture related to tree propagation?
In the upcoming
yes, sir. In the upcoming series.
Particularly on the yes, on the restoration, we do have a lecture on 21st, that is the World Forestry Day. Restoration of the degraded lands. Hello.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's one more on soil and water conservation technologies. Sorry, were you asking for the restoration or the forest resources?
Propagation of tree.
He is asking about the propagation.
Okay. Sorry, I think misheard it. Not exactly on that, but of course on forest resources. And I think Dr. M.K. Singh, I can see he might be touching upon the general aspects of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question from our participants? Great. So I will end for today and look forward to see you tomorrow. Bye. Thank you.